Welcome back to Zuko Builds. My old miter saw insert is completely chipped away and old and flimsy, made out of a cheap plywood. So this week, I'm gonna show you guys how to make a beautiful zero clearance insert for your miter saw. I'm using walnut. You can use whatever material you want. If you haven't replaced your stock insert, you'll notice the difference once you make a zero clearance insert. The holes for these are just way too big. I don't know why. But it leaves a lot of tear out on my cuts. So I'm gonna change that with a nice, beautiful walnut zero clearance insert. Let's hop right into it. All right, guys, so as you can see here, this is the current plate that I have, but it's a little busted, it's kind of chipped away. I just made this out of plywood. I'm gonna remove this and make one out of a nice walnut. The first thing you have to do is remove the set screws here. These have a star bit, but also a slot for a flathead, so I'm just going to use a flathead to do that. Go ahead and remove all of them, and then we can slide this out. With all of the screws removed, we can easily slide this out. You can also do it where you take off this whole fence, but I don't want to do that, so just easy to slide it out. Next thing, you can see that there's a lot of built up sawdust in here. So I'll just go ahead and take a vacuum, clean all this up, get the big chunks out. That way we have a nice fresh start. Next up, this is the stock plate that came with the actual miter saw. I'm just gonna go ahead and roughly trace this out. First, I'll start by maybe giving myself about a half an inch, quarter an inch of wiggle room here. Make a line there. And then just roughly trace this out. Might be a little hard to see. Let me see if I can grab a marker instead. Perfect. And then with about a quarter inch wiggle room up top. I'll go ahead and cut this side with the miter saw and then go ahead and rip this down so that there's about 1/8 of an inch from the line on the table saw. So you can see here I have it pretty close to my line with those rough cuts. The next thing I'm going to do is take it over to my bandsaw, cut pretty close to the line, just slightly on the outside of the Sharpie. That way when I go and flush trim it with the router, I can just use this as a template here, and I'll probably use the blue tape method to fasten these together. I won't have so much material to cut with my flush trim saw, and it'll make it a nice smoother cut. All right, now that we have it roughly cut out, we have just the smallest amount of material left to cut, which is exactly what we're looking for on all sides. This is perfect. So next what I'll do is, using blue tape, let's go ahead and start with the plate itself. Add some tape there. Tape there. Same thing for the new plate we're making. That and like that. And what I'll do is take some CA glue, super glue. I think it hardened on this tip. Quick tip. Go ahead and chop this tip off, and that should give us a fresh start. maybe a little bit more. Add a line there and a line there. Why not through the middle as well, just a little bit. And then taking some accelerator spray, I'll go ahead and spray the other side, do it away from the super glue. We have a very short amount of time to work with this, so you want to kind of place it above the piece. And then once you have it where you want it, go ahead and press for about 10 seconds. And that should set with the accelerator spray. Now the glue is set, gave it about 10 seconds. I'm gonna go ahead and take it over to my router table, and using a flush trim bit with the top bearing, I'll ride the bearing along the stock plate, and the rest will cut flush to that plate. That way we get the perfect shape. Let's go ahead and go over to the router table. Now you can see here we have a pretty perfect cut. It's exactly what we want. To separate these, just gonna take an old blade and just prop it off of each other. Then you can easily just peel away the tape. Perfect. Now the next thing to do is, obviously this walnut is a little too thick, so I'm going to plane it down to the exact thickness using some calipers to gauge that. And we should be ready to drill these holes to mimic them and install it into our miter saw. I'll go ahead and plane it off camera, and I'll touch base once I'm done. Alright, so you can see here the thickness of the original insert is 0.035, and if I take my piece of walnut here, slightly over. I'll go ahead and test it with this just because I don't want to take away more than I have to, so I'll test fit it here. And if it's still protruding, I'll go ahead and take off just the smallest amount. Okay, so even though it was off by the slightest amount, I haven't made any adjustments yet. You can see that it's perfectly flush with this. So I'm glad I didn't take away more, because then maybe it would have been a little too shallow. So I'll go ahead and now trace out the holes for these, drill those out, give it a quick sanding, apply some finish, and then we can cut our zero clearance into it. As you can see, it looks so much prettier. I went ahead and drilled the holes, countersunk them so that the screws here sat flush, a little bit below the surface actually, and went ahead and applied some oil to this. Now the next thing to do is to make our cut so that we have a nice zero clearance insert. I'll go ahead and turn on my shop vac, make this cut, and let's see how pretty it looks. I mean, just look at how much better that is. Absolutely beautiful. Everything is nice and flush with one another. Sitting there nice and tightly. Very happy. There you have it, guys. Like I said, if you haven't ever made a zero clearance insert for your miter saw or even your table saw, you'll notice the difference with your cuts. They're going to be a lot cleaner and it looks a lot better. Other than this, or rather than this ugly yellow, I have a nice beautiful walnut piece here for my miter saw. I might also make a zero clearance fence for the back of it. I might do that in a little tips and tricks for your wood shop or one of those little compilation videos. It's a really quick build. Sorry for the voice. I'm coming down from a pretty bad cold. I'm still a little stuffy, so if you notice me sounding a little funky, that's why. But make a zero clearance insert for your miter saw. You won't regret it, guys. And if you like the video, hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already. Thank you again so much to getting me to 500 subscribers. I can't wait till I get to 1,000. Maybe I'll do another giveaway. So until next time, guys, take care.